guys. Lady ReShell here, author and founder of Warriors Talk, where we move away from awareness towards action. This is a special edition of Warriors Talk. Author MyLeah Marks and I will be reviewing the new book by Prince Harry, Spare. And we're going to give you some spoilers. So stay tuned. I'm going to bring MyLeah Marks on in. And you guys know who MyLeah Marks is. Hi, MyLeah.
Hi, how are you? Hi, Lady Michelle.
So glad that you can join the Warriors Talk podcast. And I know that you were talking to your audience over at TikTok. Hi, you guys.
Yes, hi, TikTok. You can hear Lady ReShell. I did introduce you a little bit to them as well. And I let them know we are talking about Spare. I also let it slip that I loved it, but there's so much that I want to say about it. So stay tuned. I see some people already saying they haven't read it yet. So here we go.
Awesome. Well, I am excited. I am ready to jump right into Spare. And our question is, should you read Spare by Prince Harry? So we're going to do the book review and we're going to give you some spoilers. So if you haven't read it yet, don't worry. We won't spoil it too much for you. You still are going to make your decision if you're going to read it or not. So let's jump right into it, MyLeah.
Let's do it. I'm ready. I hope you guys can hear on TikTok. I'm going to go ahead and turn it up a little bit for you. I see a lot of no's, haven't read it yet. But our question, like Lady ReShell said, should you read Spare by Prince Harry? So I have notes. I'm like really into this. Right? We're prepared.
Yes. Lots of notes.
I know, right? I was trying to like narrow it down because honestly, to be honest, so let's start here. I just want to go over initial thoughts with you, Lady ReShell, as I'm like clearing my computer and going through all my notes and things here. Initial thoughts, like just leading up to the book, and you all as well, if you want to comment, if you're watching live, whether it's TikTok or anywhere else, just initial thoughts when you heard about the book. What did you think? Because I personally was like, yes, please. I'm ready. And I can talk a little bit more about why I wanted to read this book, but can you just share with me a little bit about like why you were like, yes, I want to read this and why?
I wanted to read it because I wanted to hear Harry's side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to hear what he had to say. You know, the media can always spin their narrative on it, but if the words are coming directly from Harry's mouth, then there's no disputing it. So I wanted to hear what he had to say and give him a fair chance, you know, versus, you know, jumping to a conclusion without all the facts.
Yeah. No, I honestly, same. I think so. I've been following, and you know me, I've always kind of loved British like things. I've always been fascinated. I love doing the British accents. I love reading books about British culture and all the things. Now, I didn't know that a lot of the things was going on in the British royal family. Like I didn't know all of that, you know, as a kid growing up and everything, I always thought, oh, British royalty. Like it kind of seems like a fairy tale. But I think in more recent years, just hearing like what's been going on with Meghan and Harry really like showed me, okay, it's not a fairy tale. Honestly, while all this was going on, I was like, and that's one of our dogs. We actually, so fun fact, everybody who's watching, we have dogs, right? We have dogs that are brothers. My dog is actually being super quiet right now, and Lady ReShell's dog, who is the smaller brother of my dog, is like super hyper. I think he liked the book and he's trying to chime in, is what it is. So, you know, if you guys have any comments or questions about the book, go ahead and comment too, so we can answer anything. But all of what I was trying to say before I was interrupted by Mr. Blue is I had been kind of following the story and not following it at the same time. I feel like in more recent years with the Netflix interview, you know, that just came out, or a documentary, should I say, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like they're telling their part of the story, and just kind of watching them talk about what they're going through and seeing the British family and like the monarchy kind of not back them up made me say, okay, like I need to hear what Harry has to say about this. So long story short, as my dog is now starting to whine in the background. I wanted to hear what he had to say as well, because I just feel like it's time, you know, it's time for him to share what like his side of the story. But that was our introduction. Lady ReShell, I'm gonna let you go ahead and take it from here.
I totally agree that it's definitely time to, you know, hear the facts, get it out, and let the public come to their own conclusions about it. Mm-hmm. So go ahead.
No, I was just saying I agree. I think Oh my gosh, people have been so mean though. Have you noticed? That was one thing I wanted to ask, because I noticed a lot of, no matter what they do, Harry and Meghan, whether it's like walking down the street or Meghan's new podcast, which I love, that I've been listening to, like it's like, oh, she's doing a podcast. Here we go. Oh, they're walking down the street. Well, who do they think they are? And it's just like, what? Let them be great. And so same, I feel like we're on the same page of like, it was time to hear the story, and like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Honestly, what I've known is the people that are from his country are the most critical. They have been the most critical. Yeah. And I feel like they have this loyalty to the monarch.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And it's almost like they're afraid to form their own opinion about it. And, so yeah. So I think this is why it's so important for you and for us to hear the words coming directly from his mouth.
Definitely. And you brought up a good point here. So you said of how his family, like they weren't really looking to stand up for Harry, right? And they weren't standing up for the monarchy and stuff, right? But like also the press. So the monarchy and the press. So like they are all kind of almost like supporting each other, but supporting no one at the same time. And it's just so sad that Harry kind of spent his whole life, as like in this thing, and then he finally like realized when he needed help the most, they weren't going to support him. Nobody was going to support him. He kind of had to support himself. So it was just a whirlwind. I see comments here, people saying like, stop hating on Meghan and Harry, go get somewhere and sit down. Amen to whoever said that. I feel you. Yeah, same. They're humans, and I feel like people are always hating on them. And I see comments about the UK press, United Kingdom press, tabloids and all of that. So I see they have their own, people are saying stuff about them. That's funny. Well, we have thoughts about them too, y'all. We'll get to it in a second, but it's been a whirlwind. It's kind of like, it's just sad. It's sad of how they're viewed in a lot of ways, but I feel like they are really trying to form their own narrative. And that's the good thing about Harry and Meghan in this book.
And you mentioned narrative. So they want to spin their own narrative so that it can sway everybody their way. And basically, I feel like they don't have anybody else to have an opinion about the subject. And the media word is law. That's what they want you to believe. And we know that that's not true. We know that the media, as well as the monarch, has put their own spin on news.
And you know what, Lady ReShell? So the crazy part is, I think Harry touches on it a lot as well in the book, of how it was kind of like some of the stories, and we're going to get into this too, because he covers it kind of throughout the book, because there's part 1, part 2, part 3, all of that. But he covers a lot of, the press plays a part in the whole book, y'all. So if you, spoiler right there, he talks about it. He breaks it down from beginning to end, how the press played a part in his life with his mother's death. Oh my gosh. Like he kind of started with that in part 1. And like how traumatized he was, like with the flashes of the cameras and stuff. Like he talked about all of that from beginning to like how the monarchy kind of, they love, almost like they were feeding them stories. They were feeding the press stories. It was kind of like a partnership, but also like, it was just strange. It's like sometimes the press were on their side, sometimes they weren't. It just, the press was a whole thing. I feel like everybody knows that, even if they haven't read the book yet, but it's just, oh my gosh, Harry breaks it down and even talks about like suing the press and different people too as well. So that's how it's just like one of those things where it's just like somebody said, I wish people would just stop hating on people, stop stepping on people in life. And it seems like the press steps on the royal family a lot. I don't know.
Almost like they're bullying them.
They're bullying them. In a way, yeah. Anyway, I know we're getting all caught up with the press. People keep commenting about the press as well, which is a whole thing. But I know that we also, again, so it was part 1, part 2, part 3, and we kind of want to get into like the different parts of the book. And I know Miss Lady ReShell has some thoughts on part 1. So can you kind of lead us and guide us into what kind of went down in part 1?
I have so many notes from part 1. So part 1 started off with Harry he set up a meeting with his father and his brother right after his grandfather's Philip's funeral. And so he meets them. They're coming to meet him, but they're taking their time, right?
Yeah.
They're making Harry wait, almost like they're trying to, because Harry called the meeting, right? So that means Harry had control because he's calling them to a meeting. So in order for them to take control back, they decided to make Harry wait, almost to the point that Harry thought they wasn't even gonna come. And then when they decided to show up, you know, they were walking together, and Harry noticed that they were in sync. Their walk was in sync. The both of them was in sync. And he said, normally they're never in sync. They always arguing, fussing over something, but the two of them are never in sync. But this day, they were in sync. And Harry was like, uh-oh, that's not a good sign.
Yeah.
So he started the book with that. And I think that was a good foundation of the book to let you know, basically where he was going with the book and how he was feeling with them being in sync. And at that meeting, he wanted to tell them how he was feeling, what was going on with Harry, because it was always so hard to talk to them. They want you to go through this protocol, and we're family. Why can't we just talk to each other? Why can't we just have this conversation? It's so much that you have to set up a meeting through their people come together. Everybody's always so busy. And then when we get to this meeting and I'm telling you how I feel, they was shooting down everything Harry said. He said everything that he told them, they shot it down. They cut him off every single time he said something.
Yeah.
He said, whoa. He said, telling them, this is how I've been feeling. And they was like, why? Why are you feeling this way? Why are you feeling like you got pushed out? And he was like, you don't know? And the both of them was like, we don't know. And Harry's like, maybe y'all don't know me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I listened to that twice, because that part was just the opening. That was just the opening, you guys. Literally. And also, just a side note, I would say to listen to this book on Audible, listen to the audiobook, because he tells it himself, like he's reading it. And I think it makes it, when he's telling this story and the whole story, really so much more impactful. That story struck me too. And I think something else that I took from that is how he was so nervous and kind of felt so alone, because his brother and his dad were together, but like against him though. Like they came and they made their mind up, but he thought of his mom when he was there in that specific location. And he talks about a lot throughout the book too, which I love, is how he kind of like calls on her for strength and kind of thinks like, be with me today, mommy. Like I need you today, or like, and it's just so sweet. Okay. Like send up some hearts for Diana, anybody in the chat watching right now, because like just the thought of that is just so, so sweet. And I love that he still finds strength in his mom, and he talks a lot about her in that first part throughout the book, really. But okay, so I really wanted to ask you about this. I wanted to ask you about are you about to say something?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really excited because the way he described his mom, about her like being light and stuff. Do you remember that in part one?
I remember that.
Oh gosh, right? It just like, again, he calls on her a lot, or thinks about her a lot in that way. And I just thought, oh, this is like the most beautiful way to describe Diana, and how he kind of just looked to her for that. So your thoughts on like how he talked about her in part one, and I guess throughout the book as well, because I love it.
I think that I believe because he felt he didn't have anybody close enough to him to where he can confide in, to where he can pull on, without judgment, without making it seem like he's just this bad seed. And his mom was just this pure light for him. And he would look to her when he was making decisions like, mommy, are you here? And any little thing that he can pull that was kind of pure, whether it was an animal or a flower or whatever, he would kind of see his mom, and he felt it as reassurance for him that, Harry, I'm with you. Harry, you're doing the right thing. Harry, I see you. You know, and it gave him the will and the courage to keep going. So I'm glad that she was there, and I'm glad that he had that, because it could be lonely, considering the type of family that he's in, the institution, as they call it.
Institution.
Yes, it could be very lonely. So I'm glad that his mom was still there. And he was, when she was alive, she was just this light. Her smile, it illuminated. People gravitated to her. She was just an amazing person. And she cared about people. Genuinely, she did. And Harry is just so much like his mom.
She is.
So much like his mom. So, okay.
No, that was literally, I hope you guys can hear her clearly. Lady ReShell, like, literally just said everything I wanted to say. Diana, and I love that Harry captures that. He's like, yes, she is kind of, I feel like when people describe Diana, because I've come to know her a lot more. I've been watching like documentaries and stuff like that in the more recent years, but like he describes her as light. He talks about her as like this pure thing. And like you said, he kind of sees glimpses of her throughout his life. And to me, that's kind of how I've seen her too, because that's just how she was. And the fact that, you know, her son, who is literally, he calls himself his mother's son. Like if y'all haven't watched the documentary on Netflix as well, where he talks about his mom a lot, Harry and Meghan. So watch that and read the book. He literally talks about her like that. And I feel like even though she's gone, it's so good to see her impact in his life, especially because she would be so proud of him and what he's doing. And I feel like, oh gosh, yes, Harry is his mother's son. I'm proud. I'm so proud of him, honestly, right now. And I love how he carries the message of like her spirit and her love throughout the book. Even in Meghan, he mentioned it. I don't think so much in the book, but he mentioned it in like the documentary, how she was a lot like her to him. Yeah, just oh my goodness.
And they say that men tend to marry people similar to their mom, right? And I think he saw so much of his mom in Meghan, and it kind of drew him to her. And you know, it kind of kept him close to his mom too, because he was 12. So he was constantly searching, you know, for something to really remind him of his mom, to bring him comfort that a mom would bring him, you know, he was 12 years old when he lost his mom. So he probably can't remember so many memories about her. So he's reading stuff, he's watching stuff, and he's listening to stories, and he's trying to just remember the essence of, and I don't want to be jumping because he mentioned something about her perfume. He went and brought her perfume.
Yes, so he can smell it and remember her. Yeah.
So just even little stuff like that, it kind of triggered him. You know, he was in therapy, so a little bit different.
Oh yeah, the therapy. So somebody said that's definitely deep. It really is. Seriously, like he gets really. So something I noticed about Harry right away in just part 1 alone, how open he is and how he just, you know, I think we haven't known much about him. We've known him as the party prince and all these other things, the labels that the press has given him, right? But yeah, it's totally like the way he opened up in this book, it was deep. Literally part 1, I was like, oh, this is real. Like he is just telling his story and his journey to heal and to remember his mom and to process things throughout all the things that unfolded. Like, y'all, this is part 1. Can you imagine that we still have to talk about things like his military experience and like what happened with Meghan and all? Like, it's just so much stuff in this story, and it doesn't even seem real, right? It seems like this is like a drama series or something. Like, it seems like literally The Crown. Like, it literally seems like it should be a show and not like real life, because insane.
I think Harry was very observant.
Yeah,
he's a very observant person, and he, you know, he sits back, and they say he's known as the hothead. You know, he just goes off.
He called it the red mist. You remember?
But he sits back and he observes things, and he observes people, and then he comes to his conclusion based on those facts of what he gathered about these people. And so I just saw him like sitting back, observing everybody in his family, because in this book, he describes everybody in his family to a T. Like, from his grandmother to his grandfather to his father to his mom to his brother, you know, even his Gangan, as he called it, Grangan.
The queen mother. Yeah, that was Elizabeth.
He describes them all to a T. So he's a very observant person, very much in tune with his feelings, considering the way that he grew up.
And you know what? That's the crazy part, because he unpacks that a lot. I think for Harry, he was the spare, right? So I feel like he kind of was able, and if y'all don't know, that's the name of the book, Spare. So he was able to kind of observe a little more. And I think he touches on it a lot, of how he was kind of in the background, literally one step behind his brother a lot of times, you know? And so I think he was able to kind of observe or have a closer relationship with Queen Elizabeth, closer, you know, he talks about stuff like that. Like, I was able to observe people or be friendlier with my grandma because maybe she was a little harder on the heir, William, and stuff. Like, he was able to kind of hang back because, you know, it's Harry. Like, he's not gonna rule, and that's sad. That's literally sad, because he even talked about as a kid, or I'm pretty sure this was in part 1, where he talks about his mother's funeral, which I definitely want to talk to you more about that. But he mentions how literally he knew as a kid he was the spare. Like, people talked about it all the time. His family talked about it all the time, y'all. Crazy that he knew he was the spare and that his brother was the heir, and that he mentions even like literally he knew he was born to be the extra, be like possibly to provide organs or something to his brother if he needed it. Like what? Can you imagine growing up like that? Like literally in the background, literally kind of watching everything. That is insane.
Or the word that he mentioned was a distraction.
A distraction. Yeah, and then the press used that against him literally all throughout his life so far.
Yeah.
Mind blown.
Yeah. Yeah. So he did mention his mom's funeral, and just
the funeral.
12 years old, William was 15, and they are having to walk behind their mother's funeral. And keep in mind, they can't cry. They are not supposed to shed a tear as they mourn in silence, walking behind this casket. But everybody else was crying. All the other people that he was shaking hands with, they were crying. And he felt some type of way, like these people didn't even know my mom. Right. And they are crying, and why can't I cry? Why can't I show emotion?
Can you imagine? If you all can hear clearly here, literally everybody knows that scene. I remember seeing the videos from that scene of the young boys. I think I cried because I was like, are you serious? Literally walking behind their mother's coffin. And I remember there was a whole like argument about it, like, don't make him do it, don't make him do it. Then they wanted William to do it by himself, but Harry was like, I'm not gonna let my brother do it by himself. Like, just the fact that, and also crazy, right? They weren't really allowed to show emotions. So I think Harry touches on that too. Like maybe it was just like ingrained in me, right? That I'm not supposed to do this. And so he didn't cry until later on in life. That's insane. So anybody who is familiar with that, comment down below. Are you familiar with the scene with William and Harry walking behind their mother's coffin? Did you know the story behind that? Because I don't think we all got to kind of hear it until now, because all we saw was that, and I just think also the fact that Harry, not only that, which was just mind-blowing and just heartbreaking, he talks about how he cried finally, like when at the burial site, I believe, but then like he didn't really cry much after that and much later. And oh my gosh, also, so I was gonna ask this, and somebody said they do remember, and somebody just said what I was about to say, so I caught this comment. He didn't think that she was dead. So what do you think about that theory? Because I felt so bad for him that was his coping mechanism. And I just want to hear anybody's thoughts. Tell your thoughts on that.
Yeah. What do you think I just want to read Amanda's comment really fast. She said that news about the organ donor was very shocking to her too.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, like how you gonna tell me you about to take my organs in case this boy need them? If something go wrong with him, y'all gonna take my organs from me?
Yeah.
And that makes you feel like you really not important.
No,
because
for real.
If the heir needs these organs, if he needs a kidney, if he needs a heart, whatever he needs, the spare is here to give it to him.
Terrible.
To make sure that the heir lives. So that was horrible. It was kind of horrible. And for a young person feeling these things, how do you expect Harry to act? How do you expect him?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying you're right. Literally. And we can unpack more about the spare title later, because I know he talks more about it later in the book too.
Really quickly, he mentioned that his father told his mom when he was born, I have an heir and I have a spare. My job is done.
You know what? Charles needed whooping. I'm sorry, y'all. Charles petty. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you later, so go ahead.
He needs to be beat by his mama.
Charles, he needs a timeout. Okay, that's literally, because some of the stuff, Charles is another discussion. Y'all pray for him.
We would have to do a whole show on that.
Like for real though. Can you just imagine? Like, first of all, Diana hearing that, like, did you just tell me that you're what? That's a whole nother thing. The Charles and Diana thing and how, but seriously, that was petty. And the fact that Harry, like you said, had to grow up kind of knowing like, I'm just the extra, just sucks. And oh my gosh, so it's just so much here, I feel like we could talk about these points forever, because I just feel for Harry and like him also going back to that coping mechanism of literally just being like, my mom's not dead, and because he didn't feel like he had proof, and he didn't feel like he didn't see the body and stuff, and so it was like, oh my gosh, like I just remember I just felt for him, like I wanted to give him a hug, because oh my gosh, that's insane.
And he talked about how his dad told him how his mom passed. He came and sat on his bed, put his hand on his knee, and was like, "Mommy's gone." And Harry was like, "What?" and he didn't shed a tear then. He said his dad wasn't even crying. And so he's just like, okay, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, is she gone? Okay. And it's like, I think him not acknowledging it and, using that defense mechanism that she may be hiding somewhere. It was so he didn't have to grieve. Like, he didn't have to deal with and confront the death that his mom was not there. And at 12 years old, you really fully don't understand what was really happening and why they didn't put those boys in counseling.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they did or not. I'm assuming that they did.
No. They didn't. He talks about like that was not a thing. You remember he touches on it later on, like he went to get it himself. So that was not a thing in the royal family. Oh God, like mental health is important, guys. So yeah, somebody said no counseling. You are so right. Literally, he had to go find it himself. And then there was a point where William was like making fun of him later on. Oh my gosh, yes, literally. Somebody who knew what he was going through.
Yes.
And who's been there from the beginning, which is another thing. William, remember that, guys, his brother. They've been through this journey together through life, right? They lost their mom together. And so as the book goes on, Harry unpacks a lot of things that happens between them. And that's one thing that I really want to talk about as well as we kind of move through the parts. But like, I feel like that was one of the craziest things to me of how their relationship kind of unraveled. William was kind of a bully, or as Willie, as Harry calls him, like throughout the book. He kind of like, it's like they were close at times, but then William would kind of pull like I'm the heir type of attitude and like be kind of, which sometimes older siblings can be mean to their younger siblings, but like, I get it. I'm actually an older sibling. But I don't think I'm mean to my sisters, but I get it. They had a little sibling rivalry, which he talks about throughout the part 1, part 2, all of it. And it just kind of, the way that it kind of unravels is really sad. But do you have any more thoughts about that from like part 1 as kids, like of how that kind of
I think that in William's defense, that he was only acting off of how he was being treated and what he was being told, right? Which really wasn't good for the boys, but they had to do that to set those two boys apart, because William was the heir to the throne, and they had to make sure that he knew how special he was, and he knew exactly what type of impact he's supposed to make in the country. So they wanted him to know that. So when you're being pumped this in your head, and you see the special treatment that you're getting, and you see that your brother is not getting that treatment, then eventually your ego starts to catch up with that.
Yeah. You know what? I actually agree with you on that. Like William was a kid too, and he had to grow up in that environment. And so you're right. Everybody literally saw them as the spare in the heir. And so of course, William would feel some type of entitlement, sadly. I do think he loves his brother. I've seen interviews where Harry talks about that he does believe his brother loves him. There's just a lot of stuff to unpack with their relationship. I hope they're healing at some point.
Amanda said, seems like he had a good relationship with his dad off and on. That darling boy from Charles all throughout. It felt genuine, but kind of in that British stiff upper lip kind of way. Totally, I totally agree with that. Yes. Whenever I heard him call him that, I was like, okay. It seems like he's having some type of connection with him, showing some type of emotions. When you call somebody darling, that's a term of endearment, right? It's showing that that person holds some type of special place in your heart. So I kind of saw that throughout the story. That and I want to say, Amanda, that sometimes I felt like it was only when they were alone, just the two of them. When William wasn't around, I feel like their relationship was kind of bonding in a way. It never really, I felt like it never really got to really explode to me. That's how I felt like.
Explode as in grow? You mean like
grow, right? Because the focus was mainly on the air.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm listening to you and like blowing kisses at TikTok because I'm seeing the comments. Hi, sending love to you guys.
Okay.
hope that you also are tuning into the conversation that we're having right now. So we were talking about William and Harry's relationship a little bit, but also Charles and Harry's relationship. And so, oh my gosh, yeah. I don't know. I feel like, yeah, I do think that their relationship, like I thought it was cute too, the darling boy thing, but I think that Harry sometimes, so as the book goes on, it seems like he was like, okay, like, I think he appreciated the relationship he had with his dad. I don't think it was perfect, but even at some point, like I feel like he kind of is like, stop patronizing me. He made a comment somewhere in the book where he was kind of like with something with darling boy, and he was just kind of like sick of hearing it at that moment, and he cut his dad off. I don't remember the part, but I just remember it was a phone conversation, and he was just like, okay, but like this is the issue. Like, stop trying to like call me darling boy and like not deal with it.
Because he felt like every time he said darling boy, he was telling him, don't worry about the issue. Yeah. It'll work itself out. Don't worry about that. And it's like, but you're not hearing me. You're not hearing what I'm saying. You're not allowing me to even say what it is that I'm trying to get out, because you're cutting me off with darling boy, don't worry about it. Exactly. Almost like, if I say this magic term, he's going to be quiet and go off and not even worry about it.
Yes. And I have a comment. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I had a comment that's kind of echoing what you're saying. Like, I think it's Mika or Micah. If I'm saying your name wrong, I'm sorry. But hi, and thank you for watching. It says, but darling boy is just words. Where is the action? And I agree. I feel like, yeah, of Charles basically being like, well, darling boy this and darling boy that. Like, yeah, but like you know what I'm saying? Well, then if I'm your darling boy, if I'm your son and you care, then show me. Then listen to me when I need it. Then like listen to me when I have real concerns. Like, yeah.
Yes. If you guys are tuning in, this is MyLeah Marks and I am Lady ReShell. And we are talking about The Spare. Should you read Prince Harry's book, The Spare? So we're reviewing the book. We're giving you spoilers, and we appreciate your input and your comments. You guys, we could not do it without you. So thank you so much. This is part 1, and it's called Out of the Night. It's chapters 1 through 58. And the chapters are really short, so really short chapters. But again, I agree with MyLeah when she said to if you listen to it in his voice, you kind of get to really see how he feels. It kind of draws you in. You can almost picture yourself there with him, just looking off from afar. And he's going through all of these different scenarios. So that part I really like.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And that's why I think it was good to listen to it. Again, everybody who wants to read this book, listen to it because he's telling his story. Yeah, you can read it on the page, but I feel like it's a different experience because it feels like he's talking to you, or he's like he's literally telling you the story. Oh gosh, from beginning to end. When it ended, I was shocked. I was like, it's over already. Like, I don't want it to be over. It's so good. But part 1 itself was an intro. It ended with like a military basically. So if you guys don't know, Harry served in the military. That was a huge part of his life. And so it kind of ended on that note, part 1, at least, of him talking about his military experience. And he dives more into that. And Lady ReShell, I don't know if you noticed, but I feel like you can kind of tell where his passion and his heart was. And military is like where he found himself, right? Because he wasn't really able to do a lot of other things. He wasn't really able, he kept trying to figure out. I remember him having a conversation with Charles, right? About like, what are you going to do? Are you going to college? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And the military was like his heart. And yeah, so you have any thoughts about that? Did you notice the passion as well?
Well, I remember when he was little, maybe about 3, his mom and his dad had an interview, and they were asking about their characteristics or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I remember her saying that Harry was a different child. Like he was kind of different. And, Harry would, carve his own way. And he mentioned that in school, he was never the A student in school. And he said the media made sure they blast all of that and let everybody know that. He said he didn't want to go to university. His dad told him, take a gap year and kind of figure things out. And when he even told his dad, oh my God, no Blue.
The dog is getting excited.
Get it from him.
The dog that's so funny. The dog is excited. Okay.
He told his dad he was like, what do you want to be, darling? He was like, maybe a ski instructor. He was like, absolutely not. He was throwing out everything that would just set him apart from everybody else. And his dad was like, absolutely not. Yeah. So he said he really didn't care for, like, William was all into Shakespeare and Hamlet. He said he didn't care about all of those things. But he one book that he did like that the UK had set for all of their curriculum for students was, I think the guy name was John Steinbeck.
Of Mice and Men, right?
Yeah, so he really liked that book because he said it was plain enough for him to read. He didn't need a translator. And the characters reminded him and his brother. The friendship, the brotherhood, the loyalty. Yep. And so there was a quote in the book that he mentioned, and the quote said, "A guy needs someone near him. The guy goes nuts if he ain't got nobody." And he said he wanted to share that quote with William. But at school, William told Harry to pretend like he did not know him. So Harry kind of felt alone when he was in school, but he did mention that the matrons in school was very tender and gentle with them and showed them kind of like love. That's after the mom died too, kind of showed them love. And if it wasn't for them, he said he don't even know if he would have been able to make it through.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I jumped to like military experience, but you're right. Before that, oh my gosh. And it kind of goes back to his relationship with William, which he talks about all throughout the book, because I feel like that was a source of a lot of trauma for him too. At his school, especially right after he lost his mom, having to go back to normal life and needing his big brother and not having that. And like you said, the quote from the book, I remember that, of Mice and Men, of how he was very open about how school wasn't really his thing. But I think at that moment, like, he needed his brother and he didn't really have his brother. So yeah, I think Harry did kind of have to carve out his own way in the end. And so, of course, he went through school and stuff. He had close friends and really like went through a lot of ups and downs with the press and all of this while he was at school. But I really feel like his years at school, when he talks about it, he really appreciated the motherly figures he had there. He talks a lot about surrogate mothers too, as well, after he lost his mom.
Yes.
And
I think I'm jumping ahead. One of them was Chelsea's mom. He said he would call her mom instead of mum, because it's only mum.
I thought that was sweet.
But in part one, so really quickly, he was doing drugs. He was drinking, and he was doing those things, kind of like experimenting with it. Sometimes I think just to kind of get attention or to kind of set himself apart from William, because I remember they were over in Africa and the guys had some marijuana and they was like, "Hey, Harry, you want some?" He's like, "Yeah." And he said William gave him these big eyes like, "No, you don't." And he was like, "Yes, I do." And so, he smoked it, whatever. And he was like, William just kind of like looked at him. And, he was like, every now and then he did experiment. Yeah. The media tried to make it seem like he said that he was addicted to drugs and everything like that. But to him, I guess it wasn't as serious. I'm sorry.
And no, you're totally right. And he also mentioned, he mentioned like sometimes he did stuff, but he also mentioned that like he was trying to feel something sometimes. And sometimes like he couldn't feel anything. And that's so sad, because you think about it, like he needs his brother. His brother's ignoring him. He's still not really dealing with the death of his mother. He's traumatized. So the poor boy was trying to feel something his whole life. And I think finally, I think also progress is made in his relationship with William. And you remember the little secret hideout that they had?
H. Is that in part 2, Club H?
Part 2? Maybe it's part 2.
Are we in part 2 yet?
Well, okay. So I was nearing towards part 1 because I mentioned the experience, but we can stay in part 1. Okay, y'all. So part 1, 2, and 3, they're like a whole bunch of chapters in these different parts. So it's a lot to unpack. So I'm like, it all kind of comes together at a certain point. I'm like, where are we? But
I wanted to mention really quick, not to cut you off, about how Harry was afraid of the dark, right? He mentioned he was afraid of the dark, and that his dad used to like tickle his he said cheeks or feet.
I think he said both.
Until he fell asleep, and then he would leave the door open so that he could see like the light from the hallway if he woke up and it was dark. And I thought that was kind of good, even though his father didn't really wasn't emotionally present, emotionally available, but he kind of knew enough to say, okay, my baby is afraid of the dark, so what do I do? So he was able to do those things and kind of comfort Harry and to allow him to go ahead and fall asleep, knowing that somebody's here. I'm not by myself.
No, I agree with that. That was one thing he mentioned because I remember him also saying that his mom, Diana, was also, she said she was afraid of the dark too. So I feel like that was something they bonded over. And yeah, you know what? Also, just another note, since we're in part 1 too with Charles, Harry does mention like of how his dad wasn't the most, like you said, emotionally available, but he says that he tried. I think it was part 1 when he says he feels like he tried for a bit, but also he was an older parent, and Harry kind of mentions as well, like he feels like that maybe he kind of like he tried for a little bit, but he didn't have the energy anymore to do any of that stuff or be like running around chasing after his kids. So like, I don't know, maybe it's partly that and partly like, you know, his own like uppity British nature. Not that all British people are like that, no, but Harry does mention a little bit of like how his family is kind of like that, like very kind of stiff in how they show emotions and stuff. And so maybe it was part like he was older and tired, and part like I don't have to do this anymore. Like I don't know. So
well, we mimic what we see.
yeah.
Well, we mimic what we see. So he
Mm-hmm.
supposedly didn't get the emotional
Mm-hmm.
connection and support from his mom.
Mm-hmm.
I believe his dad was more emotionally available and hands-on with him, but the mom was she.
You mean Philip?
Philip, yes, Philip.
Oh, well, actually, yes, but can we talk about I'm pretty sure this was part 1, but I remember this also from The Crown because love The Crown. If y'all haven't watched The Crown, watch The Crown.
I was trying not to mix the two, but it's so hard not to.
No, because they're not real. I mean, it's not real, but based off of real events. So obviously a lot of it's going to be dramatized and stuff. But even Harry himself kind of commented
yeah, he kind of confirmed.
He confirmed like some stuff. He said like, yes, he watched it. He didn't say anything bad about it. He just says it's important that history gets it right.
Yes.
So I think Harry knows that The Crown is onto something. Let me just say. But I also wanted to point out, because Harry mentioned it in the book, that with Charles, so maybe again going back to how he's been brought up as well. Literally after, was it shortly after he was born or something like that, his parents went away. I don't know if it was at different times.
Yeah.
He ended up seeing like his mom again.
It was the same time.
Right?
The same time they went away.
So Queen Elizabeth, can you imagine like you just kind of seeing your mom again for the first time, and she shakes your hand, doesn't hug you, doesn't do any of that? Like you're a kid. Like that. That's kind of mind-blowing to me.
Remember when they always show this clip of Diana when they came back from overseas somewhere, they were gone, and they was gone for months, and they came back and they were supposed to greet the press first. Diana was like, no. Diana ran over there and she hugged and kissed her boys first. And what did Charles do? He went and greeted the press. He greeted the people, you know, and she hugged her boys first and like, Mommy, miss you, I love you. And then she went and said hello to everybody else. So
I love that. You know, and Harry mentions too, just literally going with what you said, which I love, how his mother loved, how she even like was quoted, I guess, saying at one point that she loved her boys obsessively. And oh my God, like, because I feel like she had to, because look at how the family was. There was like no emotion half the time. Look at like the environment that was kind of hostile with the press. She kind of had to love them like that and let them know that she cared about them. Because like, I think that was their healthy dose of emotions, you know. Anybody else feel the same way? Like that, I feel like that was like their normalcy, was Diana as a mom. Thank God they had her, because Lord.
I think that's what she was fighting for. I think she was fighting to allow them to be able to have that normalcy. She mentioned something about her sisters having a total of like 5 children, and that they had other children to be around, that they just wasn't around grown-ups, hearing grown-up conversation all day. And that's why she wanted William to start school, and so he could be around other people. And the press was concerned like how he's going to interact with these people, and she was like, well, he's been around kids anyway. He's around my sister's children, my nieces and nephews, so he'll do fine, you know. So I think it was important for her to kind of expose them to different things, because Charles' agenda was kind of different as a dad.
As a dad and heir to the crown. So, which I understand. So it's like, even Harry kind of breaks it down throughout the book. Like, obviously, it's 2 different things, right? So it's his family, and this is like regular life going on, but they're also royals. And so you have all this other stuff. It's like 2 lives in one. And it's like, we get it. But sadly, it seems like throughout his life, Harry saw that it was like, you just have to be the royal. Like, you just have to go through the motions here. You have to please the people. You have to please the press. You have to do all these things, right? You have to check all the boxes, but there was no room for being human, because royals, you know, the way that they're viewed a lot of times, the way that I feel like people attack them in the press, the way that all of these things, like they're almost like godly, you know, like they're supposed to be at this standard, and then it's either that or they're being torn down. Or it's just, oh my gosh. So Harry, again, this book Spare was a journey, and just imagine all the stuff he's gone through, guys. And this, like, he touches on a lot of things for us here, but I feel for him, and I hope that this book, and Lady ReShell, I don't know if you feel the same, but I really hope that this book is like a wake-up call for the monarchy. You know, I really hope his family reads it. Anybody else hope his family reads it and learns something from it? Because I really do. Yeah. Honestly.
Did that wrap up part one?
I think so, guys. Are you learning something from us today, TikTok and YouTube? I think part one, yeah, because basically he goes from all of like his childhood to school and then to military, right? So I think, and I kind of commented on that a little bit, and he does go on to talk about stuff with like Africa and all of that. So we can move on to part two as well. Oh, go ahead.
Really quickly, I think this was in chapter 15. He talked about how remember Diana was saying there was 3 of us in this marriage, right? Meaning her, Charles, and Camilla. And then Harry said, no, it was really 5 because she forgot me and William was in this marriage as well. And he talked about how William sensed the presence of the other woman. This was before Diana died. He sensed the presence of the other woman. So William was kind of like around his mom all the time, kind of protecting her, comforting her all the time. And I remember part of the Crown was showing that the Queen didn't like it. She didn't like it because she felt like, no, he's the heir. You know, he don't need to, you know, be, you know, smothered with all of that stuff. Let Diana, you know, deal with her own issues. Like she didn't want William to even be a part of, you know, being there to comfort his mom or protect his mom. So he talked about, Harry talked about that, how William sensed that there was another woman. And when it was confirmed, William was upset because he didn't do anything about it. You know, he kind of sensed it, but he couldn't confirm it. And then once, you know, the mom passed and, you know, the dad was like, okay, let's go. I got this other one, you know, so he kind of was like, dang, I knew it. I could have warned my mom. I could have did something.
I mean, also, and I think, you know what, so that's a good point. Because the part that I was about to bring up, I think was part 2. Again, I'm thinking it leads into part 2, but so what you were saying about like William, oh my gosh. So the fact that they even sensed that there may or may not have been another woman, because it wasn't very private, let's be completely honest, like it wasn't very hidden. Obviously we're talking about Camilla. If y'all don't know, now you know. There was, oh gosh, what was I about to say about part 2? Oh, when Charles asked for Harry and his brother to meet Camilla for the first time and stuff, and kind of like, do you like her and all of this type of stuff? And Harry was like, yes, but don't marry her. William and Harry, yes, but don't marry her. Like it would just stir up too much. And that was so sad because it was like, they were like, okay, so that part 1, part 2 of what I'm trying to say was Harry was also just like, I think Harry was really just wanted his dad to be happy. He mentions that. They both did. It's like, well, maybe we don't approve of this relationship, but like at this point, like mom is gone, we want you to be happy. And it's kind of like a 2-part thing where it's like, it's sad because I think the boys were hurt to a certain extent, but it's like, you know, at this point,
Harry said in the book, he said, you know, you're with the person that you love.
Yeah.
You love her and you're with the person that you really love. So be with her. You don't have to marry her. You with your person. Yes, why do you have to marry her? You have to marry a woman who tore up the family. She tore up the family. How does that look? And then I guess you expect us to be like, hi, stepmommy Camilla. I'm sleeping with my daddy the whole marriage, and I'm just supposed to. No,
it's sad. Honestly, it's sad. And I think oh, go ahead.
Not to interrupt you, but he did say that she wasn't, I guess when they first met her, she wasn't this wicked stepmother that they thought she would be.
Which, I mean, why would she be, I guess, at this point? Like, what was she, you know? Harry did say that. Oh, go ahead.
No.
Oh, I was just going to say, you're right. Harry did mention that she wasn't mean, but he noticed that she wasn't interested in him. Like she wanted to win over William is kind of what, it's literally what he alludes to. And it was like, well, she talked to him. And so
That was her competition. William was her competition. William was, because he was the next in line for the throne. So he was like her competition. So she like, Harry, she just really disregarded Harry. He wasn't important to her. But she felt like if I could get William on my side, then, you know, I'm in. I'm all the way in.
Yeah. I think so. Oh, gosh. It's just so sad though. Again, I feel like how that situation with Camilla went, and like Harry, it's like they begged Charles to be like, no, because they didn't want like drama with their mom's memory and stuff. Like, I get it. And it's sad, but I feel like the maturity in it is that Harry was just like eventually he goes on in the wedding and stuff to be like, you know, he looks happy. My dad looks happy. I just want him to be happy at this point. And you know what I'm saying? Like, what can you do? And Harry shows a lot of maturity throughout his journey. So I feel like we see him. He talks about the stuff that he does wrong in the book. He talks about when he's messed up in the book, which, you know, a lot of things go on. But I will say, I feel like he grew and there was a lot of maturity in being like, okay, well, like stuff like that with his dad. Like, okay, well, at least he's happy. I feel like he took the high road in a lot of situations. And there's something else I want to bring up, but it's totally like unrelated to the wedding. So before I do that, I want to see if you had any more thoughts on that topic.
Well, he talked about Camilla being the spin doctor, right? Because the people, the public, the press, they hated her because Diana was the people's princess. You tore this marriage apart because you kept sleeping with this man while you was married, and knowing that she's married and she has these 2 boys, you didn't care. You didn't care. So Harry called her the spin doctor because she would supposedly leak stories to the press that would put other people in a bad light to make her kind of look good. You know, spin stuff around to make her look good. One of the stories was when Harry, they plastered all over the paper that Harry was a drug addict. And he said that, you know, they can choose the stories that they want them to put out. And he felt like that she was not just him, she was using him and William and him stories out to make herself look better in the press.
Yeah. And so that goes on throughout the whole, like part 1, part 2, part 3, where you're right, where Harry starts realizing that so the royal family has like set kind of reporters that are on the inside as well, that they kind of, you know, they have I forget what they call it, but a team that also manages like their press and all that. And so
press secretary, they have their own press secretary.
Yep.
And then you're right, they have their own set of reporters, editors, or whatever that will help get their stories out.
Exactly. And throughout this book, honestly, it's kind of sad how Harry and William start to realize that their dad, Charles and Camilla, their team, whether they were advising them on this or not. Oh, the Royal Rota. You're right. So it's called the Royal Rota. I remember that now. Oh my gosh. But can you imagine though that like your dad and your stepmom are like feeding stories or allowing stories to kind of go on from their team that are bashing you? And it's like, well, and Harry always suspected too, like that it's because it made Charles look better. Like Charles didn't like to not look good. It's now the Crown talks about it too a lot, but it does kind of seem like that. And Harry kind of confirms it, to be honest. Like if it made Charles and Camilla look good as the next ruling monarchs and stuff, then cool. You know, whether it was against Harry or William, it was like, well, as long as we look good. You remember when Charles literally wouldn't like approve certain things, like you can't go on this trip because I'm going on this right now. Like he like canceled something for Kate and was like, well, I'm doing something, so I need the press. Like, who are you? Like, sir, sit down. Like that to me, that is wild. Like it's just so immature, you know?
It is. And I think that had a lot to do with him and Diana's relationship. Is whenever they went out, Diana always outshined him. And then not purposely, but the people just gravitated to her. And it's like, as the next coming up heir, you know, that didn't look good. And so that made him really dislike Diana. It made him really like Camilla because number one, to them, Camilla wasn't as good looking as Diana. She was older than Diana, you know, and, you know, she really wasn't going to fight Charles on anything. She was in agreement with everything Charles, you know, wanted to do. So she wasn't going to try to outshine Charles. For number one, she had a husband at home. So she wasn't trying to do anything. But I think he was kind of like in competition with Diana, kind of afraid. That's why.
Go ahead.
No, I think that's why he kind of like didn't, gravitate to her more, and he just kind of, soaked himself in Camilla.
Yeah, I think you're right, because Harry mentioned, excuse me, I believe it's part 2, but I remember him mentioning, no, maybe it was, oh goodness, I think it may have been part 3, but early comment on this because it matches what we're saying because Megan comes in the picture more like part 3 really. But he talks about how his father kind of felt threatened by him and his new soon-to-be wife at the time, Megan, because he didn't want that type of attention because he had already taken off of him. Charles didn't want the attention taken off of him because he had already experienced it with Diana. Literally, Harry says that. Like, he says it in a different way, but he says that. And I was just like, wow, like, your dad is attention hungry and he's messing up y'all lives for what? Or trying not to like help you guys when you have bad press for what? Like, it just sounds insane. Also, can I pause because I'm getting some, thank you so much. Mika or Micah Leslie, I really don't want to say this wrong, but my sister's name is Micah, and so when I see this I think Micah. So Micah Leslie, thank you for your gift. Thank you to everybody who's sending love, gifts, all the things. Follow, like all the beautiful things, and yes, we love you. And comment down below if you have any questions about the book, because we read it all, y'all. We want to talk about it as much as we can. But Lady ReShell, oh my gosh, I feel like did we migrate to part 2? Are we on?
I think we kind of migrated to part 2. I wanted to jump in. I wanted to talk just say really quickly about Club H. Where they were able to go. It was them and like a handful of their closest friends, where they were able to go and let their hair down and just hang out as teenagers and not have to worry about stuff leaking to the press, although some did leak to the press. But they did have a place that was on the grounds right next to where their father lived, to where they can kind of like hang out, because they wasn't supposed to go out and hang among like other people because they didn't want them to get in trouble. They didn't want them to get kidnapped. They didn't want anybody to be with them or anything. So I was grateful that they had a place where they could go and just hang out as kids and just to be themselves. So I just wanted to mention the Club H. But
before don't move on. Yeah, are you moving on?
Yeah, but go ahead.
No, I wanted to echo that. Club H, you guys. So if you haven't read the book yet, you may not know, but Club H was like a secret underground club, like at their school, I believe.
It was on the grounds. No, it was on the grounds. Charles. It was by Charles Quarter.
Oh, okay. See, I remember reading it, and for some reason I just had it in my mind that it was like at the school. But what I liked about it was that during that time, what stood out to me is not only that Harry got to kind of let loose and all of that and be a teenager and like hang out, but he got to spend time with his brother. He mentioned how like at this time he finally felt like they were kind of bonding again, and I was like, oh, that's great, because William wasn't like afraid to talk to him or be saying like, get away from me, I don't know you, like he was before. Yeah, so that was nice.
That's totally true. He did mention that, how okay, William actually knows me down here, and he felt like they did have a bond. So yeah, you are absolutely right. So yeah, I wanted to touch on Chelsea.
Yes, we're on part 2, guys, by the way. Part 2. There are 3 parts. Okay. Chelsea, one of his like first serious relationships. Yeah.
And he kind of stayed on Chelsea in the book for a while. Like a lot of the chapters are about Chelsea. And I really felt like Chelsea was his first love. That's what I got from it. Like, she was his first love. And so she was a person that she wasn't all excited because he was Prince Harry. It didn't faze her. She was just like, okay, whatever, what you want to do, you want to hang out? Okay, let's go. It didn't bother her that he was Prince Harry. She wasn't overexcited. He mentioned how, they dated off and on, right? They dated off and on while he was in the military and stuff. And how he was so close to her parents. And if he had in-laws, they would be the perfect in-laws.
I remember that. Yeah. But oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, to the point to where I said he called her mom, but not mom, because his mom is the only mom. Okay.
Which honestly was super sweet. I feel like the sad thing is, though, he does mention, even though Chelsea really, like you said, may have very well been his first love and all of that, but she didn't really want the spotlight of what came with the royal life. And so I really think that,
a lot of the women didn't.
Yeah, a lot of
the women he dated didn't. And I really think it was because maybe they were already well off. And then their parents too was telling them, you don't want that life. You don't want that life.
Yeah, people kept saying that to them throughout and even with Megan later on, her friends were like, is he worth it? Is it worth this, girl? Like, oh gosh. Yeah.
You don't want that life. I think they kind of did it to Diana too. Diana's little friend group too was like, are you sure you want this? Like, this is crazy.
I feel like one day we need to talk about Diana and Charles' story, because that alone, it's like, oh gosh,
it's gonna get me upset. I
know. It's just like, God. But honestly, I felt for Harry. I'm glad that he was able to find somebody like Chelsea. I know like he dated other girls kind of after that, but before he found Megan and stuff. But it just really feels like that relationship helped him a lot. I feel like, and his time in like Africa and stuff, he kind of coincides with that relationship, and like moving on to like military stuff. Like those were impactful years of his life that made him like stronger and made him like face stuff and like made him like I feel like he learned a lot. Like those were his like some of those major life experiences.
He really embraced. I'm sorry to interrupt. He really embraced the military. Like he felt at home. He felt like he was excelling in the military. Like it was his own thing. And you know, he got compromised too in the military. I don't know if this is if we jump into his part 3, but you know, he got compromised, and there was a point to where they was like, okay, you're gonna have to get out of here because the enemy was looking to kill him. They was like, we're gonna cut your ears off when we find you. They knew he was there. He got compromised, and they were going to kill him. They were looking to kill him. He said he was on the radio. He kept hearing this. They were looking for, I think they were saying the red fox. They were looking for the red fox. And to go get the red fox. And he was like, who is that? Who's the red fox? And it dawned on him that he was the red fox. So they had to get him out of there. Yeah. But him and Chelsea, she didn't really want him to be in the military, but she knew that was his thing. So she didn't kind of like, you know, make him feel bad about it or anything. They was always able to pick up from where they left off whenever they got back together. I really felt like they were going to be together, but she was just like, it. To me, I felt like she was like, it is what it is. Like, you know, I'm not going to pressure you to do whatever. It is what it is. And she didn't pressure him at all. But I felt like they had a really good connection to where he was always able to be himself with her, you know, and not felt like he was being judged or anything. So I felt like, again, he spent a lot of time in his chapters talking about Chelsea a lot.
Yeah. I mean, because again, she was a part of a lot of that. Him joining the military, him going to Africa and stuff, like all that stuff. Like she was kind of around for that, so that makes sense. But just also to comment on his military experience, because I feel like part 2 covers that a lot. Goodness gracious, Harry's heart was the military, and even like after that, which is kind of sad, like that he had to leave because of safety. Actually, a couple times he was threatened because of safety, and like he, in the end, he did have to leave and became a pilot and all of that. That you can tell that was like, it meant so much to him. Like Harry, like his heartbeat, his passion was being a soldier. And he made a comment as well in the book of how, like, even if he's not a pilot anymore or not in the military, that he's still like he's still a soldier. You know what I mean? No matter how many. Oh, go ahead.
No, I said that was his family. He felt like that was his family too.
Yeah, because oh my gosh, look what happened with his family, his real family. Like, look what all the things that he went through with them. I'm not surprised that he is even like carried on the work of like making sure that he is kind and does different things for veterans and reaches out to them and like all that stuff because of how impactful it was for him. And even with Africa, he talks a lot about how a lot of his heart. Actually, somebody made a comment. Oh my gosh, was it one of his surrogate moms in part 2? As he called her, one of his surrogate moms was like, or was it the husband? I think it was the husband of the one who kind of adopted him. She was like, or he was like, you were born in Britain, but your heartbeat and soul is African or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's so sweet.
He felt so at home when he was there. He really did. You know, they didn't judge him. You know, he was there. He was open. He was willing. He learned a lot from them. You know, and they saw his genuine nature, right? They saw it. They embraced it, and they treated him just like one of their own. So, You know, when you get in that type of treatment and then you go home and it's a totally different treatment, where are you gonna go?
Yeah.
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 You're gonna go where you're celebrated and not tolerated.
Oh my gosh. Yes. No, that's so true. And he found, and I think that's, I know we're going to get to part 3 as well, but I think that's what he found in Megan. And he was celebrated and loved and like cared for by her. And like, oh gosh. Yeah. So when are we going to talk about that? Because there's a lot in there in that too.
Yeah. We could jump right into.
You ready? Okay, guys. So that was part 1, part 2, part 3. Again, it's kind of a longer book with these shorter chapters, but there's a lot in it. And so Captain of My Soul is what part 3 is about. And I took a few notes as well, but literally what I put here to summarize how as we jump into this part of the discussion is when he meets Meg, which he kind of talks about at the end of part 2, and everything that happened after that. So if you want to follow everything like present day, this is the part for that. But yes, Lady Rochelle, thoughts on part 3? Harry meeting Megan, seeing the Instagram thing where he saw her.
Yeah, he saw the little, I think it was little doggy ears or something. He saw her. And he was just like, oh wow, like she's gorgeous. And to put herself out there like that, like she seemed fun. I like who is this? Like, yeah, hook me up. You know, he talks about how when they met the first day, when she was it London? She was in London for a while. Yeah. She was getting ready to leave. So she was like, yeah, I'm leaving really soon. So he was like, when do you want to meet? Like, let's meet, tomorrow. Okay, let's meet. Mm-hmm. So they found a place to meet, and she was late. Mm-hmm. No, he was late the first day.
He was late the second time.
He was in traffic and he was late. He was like, oh my God.
Yes.
He was just like, I'm late. Mm-hmm. So he finally gets there and they just really just hit it off. So, and she was leaving. They was like, when are we going to meet again? So let's just meet tomorrow. So they met tomorrow. His thing was, she was like, oh yeah, let's just go here. He was like, I can't just go anywhere. Paparazzi would be, we need to find a place where, we're not going to be, it's going to bother us. So she knew like a little spot where they could go and meet, so they ended up meeting the second day and they just kind of like really clicked, like everything just kind of clicked for them to where they wanted to see each other more. Mm-hmm. And then as they started, once they started dating, they made a rule that they wouldn't go more than 2 weeks without seeing each other. Yeah. But they ended up talking about when they was going to see each other. So this is how a relationship go, you guys, right? Mm-hmm. They were texting each other. They was FaceTiming each other. He was like, we would text all throughout the day. Then at night we would FaceTime each other. In the morning we would FaceTime, then we would text throughout the day. Like they were really courting each other, even though they was like worlds apart, because that's all they had. And then they decided, okay, we need to clear our schedules to kind of meet and just come together and spend some real quality time together. Mm-hmm. And they had just met too. They was still fresh in their relationship. Yeah. And they ended up going over to, I think it was still Africa. They went over to Africa. She had a week on her schedule that was clear because she was like, she had scheduled her time to travel with her girlfriends. But one of her girlfriends was like, leave 1 week open for magic. Just leave 1 week on your schedule for something to happen. Mm-hmm. It just so happens that they both had the same week open. So they say, let's do it. How great is it that you meet a guy and he says, yeah, you got a week on your schedule. Let's go over to Africa. Okay, you book your flight. Like, what? I want to have money in my account. I'd be like, yeah, let me book my flight to Africa. Let's go. Yeah, I thought that was amazing because they was over there and they was in the raw. They was raw. It was nature. Yeah. She wasn't putting no makeup. They just out there. Just I don't want to say bumming it, but bumming it.
That's funny. But the thing is they bonded over that because they both had experiences in Africa. That was one of the things that connected them. And they talked about when they were texting and stuff and messaging from Instagram. So like Megan and Harry, like the way he describes meeting her, first of all, everybody, is so sweet. Like even before he met her, like he mentioned like how he'd seen many faces, but like that face, he said only a few have made me turn or look twice, but that one right there, like he just couldn't. He said she like stopped the wheel or something like that. There was something he said, and I said, oh my God, that's how much he loves her. And I feel like part 3 is the unraveling of everything that we've seen, like what the documentary on Netflix covers, the Harry and Meghan one, of like all the things they were going through. Part 3 is the unraveling of like, and this is what happened. And this is what happened. Like the meeting and after that. And just, I feel like that the crazy part is as we're nearing the end too of the book, is you start to see, because we start at the beginning, right, with his conversation with his dad and his brother of like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you leaving? Right. And I feel like part 3 ties it in. And it's like all the things that led up to this moment. He meets this woman, and everything that comes after that kind of explains why he had to do what he had to do. And we start to see, right, like how much he loves her and all the family that they grow and all this stuff. Like, it makes sense. Like, what do you mean, why?
But
yeah.
But he hid her at first. He was hiding her at first so they could get to know each other and spend some time together. And I guess he wasn't bothering Will and Kate. So Willie was like, what's going on? Like, when he seen you, like, what's going on? And he was like, I wanted to tell him, but I didn't want to tell him, like, because I didn't want them to, you know, pressure him or anything. So he ended up telling him, like, I met a girl. And then he was like, what did she do? Oh, she's an actress. He like, it ain't gonna last long. So
I was gonna say, can we talk about that? Like the reactions from the family of, especially William. William seemed pretty negative at first. Like every time that Harry would mention Meghan, like, oh, that's not gonna last. Oh, Harold, as he called him. Oh, like that's, you know. And it seemed like it was kind of like everybody was skeptical, like an American actress. And then talk about the meetings too, of like when Meghan met Will and Kate, and how they had them over for dinner or something like that. You remember? And she like hugged them, and she wasn't like super dressed.
Yeah, she hugged Prince William. He's just like, oh my God.
He freaked out, like.
And I kind of fought Harry for that, because Harry should have said, like, but he did say, in his defense, he did say that he warned her with his grandmother, because remember, she met the grandmother when he was she was coming to meet Fergie. She was coming.
Fergie. I think it was Fergie.
The grandmother stopped over there, so she was going to see her grandkids over at Fergie's place, and the grandmother stopped. The grandmother just happened to stop. The queen happened to stop over there, and he was like, "My grandmother's going to be there." And then Fergie ran out of there, like, "Do you know how to curtsy?" And she was like, "What?" So he was showing her how to make sure she curtsy, and you know. But he said when she met William, for some reason he didn't say, "Okay, when you meet him, don't hug him." But he said in his defense, it's my brother.
No, but see, that's what I was going to say. In his defense, he's probably been had girls around William and stuff. Like, you know, he's interacted with his brother in less formal settings. So in his defense, he probably thought his brother was going to be super chill, because he probably has experienced him, you know what I'm saying, being kind of casual with any girls he's brought around before or anything like that. In his defense, like you said, it's his brother. Like, he probably was like, oh, it's going to be fine. Like in public, obviously Meghan would learn how to curtsy and all that stuff and all the titles she has to use. But I would think the same way. I'd be like, you know, if we were just meeting for dinner and stuff and I was a royal, I wouldn't care. Like, you don't have to bow, like just come in and sit down. It's fine. Like, you know, so in his defense, I think he wasn't expecting that.
Really quickly, Diana said nobody showed her anything. Diana had to learn on her own.
That's what Meghan said too. Well, in the documentary, she mentioned that a lot more of like, there was no class. There was no class on being a royal.
Sad, because I would think that Kate would just take her under her wings and say, hey, let me just show you what.
Well, you would think, but as we learn in part 3, as stuff starts to unravel, and there was even like many things that led up to it, but one thing that stood out too was a conversation they had later in part 3 with Meghan, Harry, Kate, and William, where Kate was just, she mentioned something that Meghan said to her that like made her upset, or something about hormones or something, and Meghan was like,
baby fog. You had baby fog, because she told her something and she forgot.
Yes. And then Meghan was like, well, that's just how I talk to my girlfriends. Like, I wasn't saying that to you like in a rude way. And then Kate was like, yeah, but like, we're not that close. So like, don't talk about stuff like that with me. And
so I talk about my hormones because we're not that close.
I'm thinking that means that Kate, maybe she never wanted a close relationship with Meghan. I don't know. Maybe she didn't, or maybe I'm not going to say maybe she didn't want it. I don't know. But maybe in the end, she was just like, yeah, we're not friends. So don't like, you know, and so maybe she didn't want to take Meghan under her wing is what I was trying to say. Maybe it was not something she wanted to do, because it didn't seem like they were that, like they seemed welcoming at a certain point. Like, oh, you know, at a certain point, it was like, Harry was like, wow, she hit it off with the family. But it seemed like they were always kind of talking about her like, oh, the American actress still, like they were still like, oh, this won't last. Oh, like, I don't know. It seems very mixed signals between the family.
Because, not to cut you off, because until Harry started being serious. Once they felt that Harry was serious and he could possibly marry this girl, oh no, not at all. No, because he even mentioned a conversation where they went over to meet Camilla and him, and I remember him saying he told her, don't curtsy to Camilla.
Yeah.
Don't curtsy to her. But my dad, he said he thought she was about to hug the dad because she leaned in, but she just leaned in and gave him a kiss. But he said how they kind of bonded, they talked, and
exactly.
He liked her. She was quick wit, and they kind of connected. And he was like, Paul, like I thought you said you liked her. You got her.
There's a difference though. He probably liked her when he thought, oh, this is going to be a fling. It'll be over. She's fun, but he won't marry her. He has to marry somebody fit for this, So he probably did like her. Like for real. Like he probably did like her, but goodness gracious.
But he's not the heir.
Exactly.
He's
also that.
The heir.
So it wouldn't matter as much who he married, but also Megan is, if y'all are just tuning in and if you don't know, Megan is half Black. So I feel like they were going to make any fuss about her. I think they were going to be like, in any type of thing, they were going to be like, no, in the end, and that's why I think Harry had such a struggle getting approval, really from his family about marrying her. He did have to ask the Queen eventually, but like,
did you remember how he asked the Queen, how he was so nervous because they were walking outside and she was outside. Outside checking on some ducks or something.
They were doing like a bird hunting thing or something.
Yeah, and the wind started blowing really bad, and he was like, he kept stalling.
Yeah,
like he wanted to ask her, and she was like, "I suppose I should say yes." And he was mad. He like, "What does she mean, suppose?"
I know. I was like, "What?"
Said, no. Well, Harry, she said, "I suppose I should say yes." That she's giving you her blessing. So he took it as she did give him his blessing to get married, and. This is kind of moving forward to the wedding. He went to his grandmother about his beard because he grew his beard, and he says it became part of his identity. William had to cut his beard off because William was in the military. He came back, he grew a beard, but when he got married, the Queen like, you got to cut that off. You can't get married with that beard like that. No, that's not part of your uniform. No, you got to cut it off. And so Harry went to the Queen and said, Queen Mother, this beard is part of my identity. I want Meghan to know who she's marrying when she comes, to meet me at the altar. And this is how she identifies with me. My beard is a part of me. And she was like, you don't have to shave it, Harry. Keep it. And William was mad because he went to the Queen and asked him. He was like, you persuaded her. She had to say yes because you went to her. He was like, I just told her how important it was to me. And she said that I could keep my beard. So I think really quickly, I think another thing that William and his father did a lot is they tried to keep Harry away from the Queen by himself because he knew that the Queen had a soft spot for Harry, and she would hear him whenever he came to her sincerely to talk about what was going on. So he mentioned, I'm moving forward.
That's fine.
He mentioned about him wanting to meet with the Queen, and he made an appointment with her. She was like, Harry, my schedule is open. Like, I don't have anything scheduled. And when they found out that Harry wanted to talk to her, all of a sudden she was like, Harry is booked up. They said that my appointments are booked because they were trying to keep him from talking to the Queen. They didn't want her to know really what was going on.
That was really sad, but you're right, because I feel like Harry had a different relationship with his grandma, the former Queen of England, than William did, because that spare heir thing going on, but also the fact that, yes, he has to ask for permission about like the beard and everything. I remember that conversation too, and how William freaked out. William freaked out a lot. So in this book, Spare, Harry touches on his brother. I think William has anger issues that he needs to deal with, like for real. And I think he should go to therapy for that, like for real. Like I really hope he gets help, because he freaked out on Harry a lot about his beard, about everything. It was just like little things. Like he even attacked Harry at one point, like trying to fight him a few times actually in this book. And it's like, sir, like it's pretty sad that, but also it's sad how Harry was treated a lot of times by people like his brother and his family. But again, throughout this book, I mentioned this earlier, you see Harry's maturity and how he deals with stuff and how he processes. I'm not saying Harry was perfect, because who is, but literally Harry just like, he did what he had to do, and the wedding with Meghan, like you were just mentioning, like, I remember he mentioned how like it was, they didn't really want to do a bigger wedding, but like he knew that they had to kind of give the people what they wanted, like in a way. And so they end up doing the bigger wedding and kind of like they went through with it. I feel like a lot of people didn't think they were going to go through with all this stuff. And like, it's kind of sad because it's bittersweet, because I feel like Harry and then of course eventually Meghan, like they were really trying to play their part and do what they were supposed to do as a part of the family, in the family and for the royal family. But it just seems like as time went on, as you can see in part 3, like no matter how many times Harry tried to talk to his brother about stuff, no matter how many times he tried to get permission from his grandma or whatever, like people, like they got blocked at every turn. It's just, so why did he leave? We keep going back to that question. Why did he leave?
Well, the whole thing with the institution is, you know, you don't complain about anything.
Yeah, well, Harry,
you don't comment and you don't complain. You know, you just kind of grin and bear it, or as the Queen used to say a lot, is say, you know, it'll pass, it'll work itself out. Let it just work itself out. Yeah. Versus you addressing this, she just felt like you don't have to address everything. I assume it'll work itself out. But I remember in The Crown where she did address somebody, and I think one of her secretaries took the fall for it, and they was telling her, no, we don't want to go through. We don't want to say what you just said. She was like, do it. And they said it, and they was like, the Queen said what? Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think, you know, even in her defense too, it was a lot of things that she couldn't do, she couldn't say, and she instilled that into Charles. And I remember Charles came to her and he was trying to do something, and she was like, no, you don't have an opinion about nothing. I can't say nothing. No, absolutely not. And so, you know, we learn from our environment, and that type of thing is passed down. But Harry is a different creature, right? He got Diana and he got a piece of Charles in him. And so, you know, the Diana in him is awakened, and it's like, why are we doing this? Why we got to do this? But why are we here? Why are we treating people this way? Why can't we be nice to people? Why I can't have the love of my life? I remember you mentioned about him maturing. Him and William used to fight all the time. He said he used to physically fight all the time. And so this one time when William came over to their house, and he was telling him how rude his wife was. Mm-hmm. She's rude, you know. And Harry, like, talk about my wife like that. They ended up, you know, William ended up, you know, pushing him down. When he talked about him pushing him down, breaking his necklace, and him cutting his back on the doggy bowl. Mm-hmm. Right? And then he was like, come on, fight back. And Harry didn't fight back. And he's like, the old me would have fought. But because he's been through therapy and he's working some things out and he's getting help, he didn't retaliate. He just let it be. And I think, you know, because Harry sought out to get help, because everything that he was going through, not being able to grieve and cry about his mom and let that out, you know, he had to go seek help because it was boiling over into him using drugs, into him drinking, and having this party boy image. And so as he decides to come into himself, because a lot of times when you meet that one person, they help you mature, they help you grow into the person that you're supposed to be. And a lot of times your eyes are open to see things. And I think with Meghan, she kind of opened his eyes to a lot of things because she was biracial. So at first he might have thought that it was common and it was the thing to do of how his family treated people. Act a certain way, but now I got this biracial wife, and this don't sound right. What y'all saying? No, something's not right. Is this what we doing? Is this how we've been talking? So now I have to take a step back and take a look at myself and say, wait a minute. Okay, I've been a part of this institution, but it doesn't make it right. So let me try to correct something. So
and I think that's what him and Meghan were trying to do in the end. You know, it's like that's why they were trying to speak up about the stuff that was going on in the press. So all the headlines were racist. The way they were coming at Meghan, saying like she's straight out of Compton and stuff, like we know what that means, or saying that there was going to be some exotic blood in the royal family now. Like who says that? Like what? That so we know, and it's so sad that like it's so obvious that, especially of how the undertone of a lot of the headlines and stuff were racist towards Meghan, but it's sad that the royal family did not stand up for Harry and Meghan in these instances and kind of tried to be like, well, everybody went through it, like a hazing, almost like everybody went through it, so she has to go through it too. And I think what's so awesome and so like what shows me that they're so strong is how Harry and Meghan have flipped the narrative, right? So they went through all these things, and Harry has been in his family his whole life, right? And Meghan just joined, and like all this stuff that's been happening. Even though, you know, the royal family didn't have their back, even though Harry went through all this stuff, even before Meghan, where he really started to kind of hate the press and realized his family didn't really have his back. look at where they are now. They're changing the narrative. So yes, the press is still printing hate stories about them, especially about this book, which is sold like more than like over 1.4 million copies or something like that. Like, obviously there's all this hate and stuff towards them and all these things, but they are flipping the narrative and saying, here's our story, here's what happened. And I really feel like it goes back to Diana, what started doing that, and then of course, tragic accident, she died and wasn't able to keep going and keep telling her story and keep trying to live her truth. I feel like Harry picked up the torch and said, like, Mom, I'm not going to disappoint you. I'm not going to be quiet, because he has to protect his family. He mentioned that throughout the story. I'm going to protect you to Meghan. He kept saying, like, I'm going to protect you and you can trust me, things like that. And I think for me, I just at the end, again, I kind of didn't want the book to end, but I feel like it was just one of those things where I feel like Harry just, I'm looking at my notes too. Harry went through like all this drama with his family, but he learned to grieve throughout everything, I'm looking at my notes because I wrote this little statement down. I wanted to point out that Harry mentioned towards the end that war began for him, not like when he went off to war, not when like, all this other stuff started happening, but it began for him in 1997, August 31st, 1997, when his mom died, right? And so we go through this journey with him throughout the whole book of all this stuff that's happening, all this trauma. And like part 3 is really like, yes, I've been through all of this. Yes, my family is tripping right now. Yes, the press is tripping, but here's where we go from here. And I just, oh my gosh, I just feel like his story kind of comes together. And I feel like really, I guess, ending thoughts for me, there's so much that I can talk about in part 3 too, but I just feel like with him and Meghan going forward, because I really don't feel like this is the ending, it's a beginning. It's like, I hope that if anything, like he said, war started for him in 1997. I hope that throughout this journey of this book and everything that they're doing now, that there's healing for them, that there's more peace for them, that it's not going to be, that they have reconciliation with their family, with his brother and his father and stuff. Do you kind of feel the same way? Do you feel like you want there to be some type of healing between him and his family and Meghan and stuff? Because it just seems like the royal family's not having any association with Harry and Meghan right now.
I think that's what this book is all about, is that Harry continuously was trying to have conversations with his family, and they completely ignored him. They completely cut him off. They completely just didn't even want to hear what he had to say. Mm-hmm. And when you continue to try to tell somebody how you feel or you're part of it, and they just keep shutting you down, then sometimes you have to take drastic measures for people to hear you. Mm-hmm. So now, guess what? They hear Harry loud and clear. They know now exactly how Harry feels. Mm-hmm. And Harry, he wasn't having it. And he's letting them know, this is how y'all was treating me. And now everybody know. And everybody's saying, well, he should have never, this is family business and they shouldn't. No, the royal family, this is the people's business in their country, because that's their people, right? So everybody, they have a right to know. That's why the paparazzi have a right to take pictures and be all in their business.
Well, I would say just the fact that the royal family was very public with the press too, very public about not defending Meghan and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't defend Harry and Meghan. It was very public that they weren't going to step in. It was very public. Well, it began to be more public that they were kind of feeding stories. So like, why can't Harry stand up and say this is wrong when those things were very public? When a lot of the things they were going through was very public, And so, that's all I wanted to say is like, he has the right to tell his side of the story, because, the other side of the narrative has been twisted and disregarded for so long, because I think that the press, especially in Britain, didn't think they were going to stand up and say anything.
Well, their motto is never complain, never explain. So for them, they felt like, Harry, why are you trying to explain, what the tabloids are doing? Like, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. And he felt like, no, this is not right. Like, it's kind of different, because now it's tipping over into racism. Like, no, it's just not right. And why are we not speaking up for this? Why are we just letting this be? Mm-hmm. And again, that's with the spin doctor. They're going to spin the story so that Camilla and Charles look, they got this special look. Now it looks like Harry and Meghan is the problem. And King Charles III and Camilla have to worry about, Harry putting all their business out in the street. When, like he said, they will spin the stories that they want to spin.
Of course, because it paints them in the positive light. But you know what? It brings us back to this question, which I love, like full circle, right? So Harry talked about everybody. Just just so everybody is keeping up with us, we're on part 3, right? So you remember at the beginning, though, if you missed it, at the beginning, Harry, and I think I brought it up a few times too, but Harry was having that conversation with his dad and his brother. Like, why did I leave, right? Do you feel like it's answered here, especially by the time we get to part 3? I feel like it's very clear.
Oh,
But do you feel, yeah?
He was, yeah, it's very clear. They wasn't protected. They wasn't protected at all. He even mentioned something about really quickly about his father saying, "Oh, now this is gonna be expensive for me. Is Megan gonna continue to work because I don't have enough money to take care of all y'all? I'm already taking care of y'all." So he was like, "Wow, now this is about money. Like, oh my goodness, like." And thank God that Diana, she left her boys some money so that, because she knew that this was coming. So she made sure that Harry had money just in case he had to strike out on his own, that he would be able to do so and not, fear that, I got to worry about daddy is not going to give me any money. So
exactly. Yeah. And again, and that goes back to how much Diana really had an impact on Harry's life, and even now that she's gone, being able to have even just that from his mom, right? The money, like that helped him so much. And I feel like, again, throughout this book, one of my favorite parts really was how he viewed his mom and how she was just there for him, even though she's not physically here. It helped him through so much. I remember also one of my favorite parts just nearing the end as well was, and when Meghan and Harry had to stay in Tyler Perry's house, you remember there was like a painting or something that the goddess of something, and it was Diana. Diana was the name. In reference to the picture, and how he felt like even Tyler was like, I have no idea why this is here, but the fact that something like that, you know what I'm saying, like that helped them. They were going through so much stuff, because of his family not protecting him and all of that. But in the end, I think the spirit of his mom really helped him through all of this, and like it's just all throughout this book. And I'm just proud of Harry. I really am proud of him, really, just to see him and Meghan, how they're moving forward, and like I keep saying, changing the narrative and really like showing the truth here for them. I think it's great that what they're doing, and I follow them. So I follow what they're doing, and I like seeing like them speak up. I feel like this book has been so controversial, but very, very impactful in a good way. Like, I think it's a good thing. Some people may not, but anywho, it just, oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I think it's a good thing. Just closing thoughts. I think it's a good thing because you get to hear it in Harry's own words. Yeah, there are 3 truths to every story. It's my story, it's your story, and then it's a little bit of the truth in between both of our stories. But this is his story. This is his view and his version of what was going on in his life, and we really can't refute that. We really can't take away from it. This is what he was feeling. Yeah. He loves family. He wants to be around family. He did a talk show and he mentioned something about, his mother Diana hugged the queen and she was horrified. Like, and he said, to this day, I'm a hugger. And he didn't get it from his family, but he was like, I'm a hugger right now because, he didn't get it as a child.
Yeah.
Like, we don't realize, like, in the family, there's so many things that we do to kind of like traumatize children. Traumatize people in our family, and we begin to normalize it and make it seem like it's normal. And then when Harry gets out into, I don't want to say the real world, but when he in therapy and he's starting to realize that some of this stuff is not right. And then he started to speak up about it. And I'm just so glad that he found his voice and that he was able to stay true to his voice and that he didn't allow them to intimidate him from using his voice. And that now they hear his voice.
Mm-hmm. Whether they like it or not.
Yes. They hear his voice.
I agree. I wrote in my notes too, and I think I said this already, but I feel like this was a healing process for him. Healing and also getting his voice heard. Like, honestly, if the royal family wasn't paying attention before with the Oprah interview and everything else that was going on, I think they have to pay attention now. Like I said, whether they like it or not. So personally, I know, again, some people have already been talking about this of how Harry shouldn't have said all this stuff and he should keep his mouth shut and not air out his whatever, dirty laundry of his family. But this has been, I think, a healing process for him. And oh my goodness, if we can learn anything from Harry, it's, oh gosh, stay true to yourself, protect those that you love, speak up even when others don't want you to. I feel like I learned a lot of life lessons from Harry. What about you, Lady ReShell?
I did. How does it look to the public when the institution of the monarch doesn't comment on what's going on? And I know the silence is, the best thing to do, is the classy thing to do, to be silent and not feed into it. But this is your son. This is your blood. If anything, say, Harry, we're proud of Harry for finding his voice and getting his book, his voice, getting his story out there. We may not agree with everything that Harry wrote, but Harry, we love you and we're proud of you. And you're always welcome here, you and your family. How amazing would that look to this is a chance for King Charles to really rack up some points with the people. It's to welcome and embrace his son.
Yeah. I know. If only.
And Harry is extending the olive branch. So the ball is really in their court to rectify the situation. He said that he's open to it. He wants it. And I know he misses his family. I know he does. So
for him to leave.
It's going to be interesting to see, especially with the coronation coming up, what happens. So like you, I'm happy that he found his voice and he's not afraid to use his voice, and that he's encouraging other people to use your voice and not allow yourself to be bullied. That's because it's the norm in your family for these things to happen.
I agree. And also I wanted to bring this up too, because as we're tying it all together, the name of the book is Spare, right? So towards the end, of course, Harry talks about it kind of throughout the book, especially at the beginning. But at the end, do you remember this, Lady ReShell, when
Meghan? But I couldn't find it, but I'm glad you bringing it up.
Of course, yes. Towards the end, Meghan. So once, I think the birth of their second child, Lily, she wrote something in her journal about him and let him read it. And so, long story short, basically what she says is because he was kind of assisting or helped towards the end of the birth. When she saw him kind of holding their baby girl and stuff, she told him that's a real man. That's not a spare. That's a man, and I'm more in love with you than I ever have been, or something like that. And I just thought, oh my, right? And I just thought, Harry, oh my gosh, that is just so empowering. They've been through so much, but at the end of this, we've seen this guy in the media his whole life, and I feel for him, again, so proud to see him not as he was the spare heir, but he's so much more than that. And oh my gosh, so I just love that. I feel it ties his story together really well, because that's literally towards the end, and it just inspires me. I just feel Harry is showing us all, even moving forward, that you don't even have to give into the labels that people give you. You can be more than that. And that's another thing that got just towards the end. So I learned a lot from Spare. I learned a lot, and I love this. I'm glad we kind of did a buddy read. You started before me and I caught up, but
I could not wait to really just dive into the book, and I was just so excited. I did hear that Meghan Markle may be coming out with her own book as well, so that's interesting to read.
Listen, I'm gonna read it.
Yes, but I'm so glad that Harry's book will go down in history, because he broke records. When the book came out the very first day, he beat Harry Potter's book.
Harry Potter.
Yes. So
do you guys understand that Harry Potter has been at the top of every best-selling list since it came out? And this man, with one single-handedly, let's pause on that.
Yes. He broke some records, so I'm excited. Everybody wanted to read the story. They make it seem like nobody wanted to hear it, that Meghan and Harry getting on everybody's nerve, but people want to know the truth. People want to know what Diana boys are up to, and they want to know that they're safe and that they're able to express themselves, and that they're growing into the beautiful men that she knew that they would be, because she nurtured them to be that. So
definitely. I agree 100%. Go Harry and Meghan. Congrats on having the #1 book in the world. How does that feel? So that's honestly, I love doing this with you. Again, I learned a lot. And if Meghan writes that book, amen, I will be adding that to my shelf as well. So
I'm just asking that God just grant healing to Harry and to his entire family, that they're able to come together, they're able to reconcile. on.
I agree.
I agree. Thank you for coming up with the idea to do this. I was excited to do it with you because I know that you are the reader out of the family. You're like the book nerd, and
yes.
So I really had to get a jump start because I knew you were gonna pass me up and read this. So I was like, let me hurry up.
So fun, but you beat me. You literally beat me in finishing it, but that's okay. It's okay. We did it, y'all. I was so happy to do this with you. You know, like you said, I love reading, and this story was just impactful. So you guys, our question that we asked in our title, should you read Spare? I would say yes, 100% read it. I would say listen to it on Audible. That's how we did it. Lady ReShell, do you agree with me?
I agree. If you have gone through a loss of a parent or a loss of a loved one, or you're having issues in your family and you're trying to figure out how to reconcile it, I feel like this book will help you. It will help you bring some sort of healing, resolution, or get you to take action and maybe talk to those people in your family to reconcile. So
I agree.
Read it.
Read Spare. There's a lot of lessons in Spare, and we agree that everybody should read it for sure.
Yes, and congratulations on your new release too.
Thank you. You're so sweet. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm trying to get to Harry's level and be like the #1 book in the world. Like, how do you manage that?
It's coming. It's coming.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes. And also Lady ReShell is a writer, guys. So if you don't know that, on TikTok, wherever you're watching, she does a lot of amazing things. She has Warriors Talk. She goes live every Monday. And she does her show. Lady ReShell, give a little shout out for my little people over here so they can hear you and know where to follow you.
You guys, I am Lady ReShell Matheny, author and founder of Warriors Talk, where we empower individuals to take action that leads to a healthier lifestyle. It is a 501c3 organization where I am helping cancer survivors financially, emotionally, supporting them, and out in the community with my feet on the ground, touching people and helping them to be educated and empowered about cancer and to take charge of cancer and not to be afraid. But you can follow me on all forms of social media. Just type in @Warriors Talk with the #1.
Yes, please go ahead and follow her, even here on TikTok. For everybody who's listening, if you're watching on TikTok, you know I'm on TikTok, so go ahead and follow if you're not already following. You can find me on other forms of social media as well at MyLeah Simone. You can visit my website, join my newsletter. I am a writer, avid reader, and aspiring librarian as well. So I'm all about the stories, y'all. If you love stories like me, then go ahead and follow and do all the things.
An award-winning author. You forgot to say she is an award-winning author. She was a part of in a book anthology with me. It was called When Warriors Talk, God Listens. It was having an encounter with God that changed the course of your journey. So she was in that book, and that book won first place for inspiration. So she's an award-winning author, you guys. So
yeah, I have a few books that I've so this one I remember I have my copy right next to me, and so very true. Well, we both are actually 2 writers talking about books. Look at that, 2 award-winning authors. That's pretty cool. But yeah, guys, follow us. We would love to we would love to do this again sometime with you guys as well.
We should. Yeah. Let us know if y'all want us to do another book. Just, let us know. I'm open.
Yeah. And then next time, everybody grab a latte. Just know this is going to be a chat, and we're going to sit for a bit and just like talk through things, ask questions. I saw a lot of good comments too, so we appreciated that. We would love to bring you guys in a little more if we ever do this again. But Lady ReShell, I love you. This has been wonderful.
I love you more. Thank you so much.
Of course. Bye. Okay, I gotta say bye on